Hey everybody, welcome to Teaching for Life. I'm Sarah Donovan and thanks for joining us. This is a channel that I started to talk about my journey from moving from being a teacher K-12 to a professor in higher education, and I've had some interest from various people about what that is like and kind of to get some behind the scenes. And so in this channel, I talk about various elements of that process and a little bit about just my life and the day in the life and how I am staying in the field. I think the key for this career that we have in teaching for life means not that it's a life sentence, but that we have invested so much in this career and we joined it for all these wonderful reasons to serve youth and in the content area that we're studying and that we teach. And I don't want to abandon that when things get hard. And so I think the key for me in thinking about a PhD or thinking about different career tracks or possibilities in education is just so that we can stay in the field in whatever capacity we can, as long as we are able and that it's serving our heart and mind. And so that's what this channel is all about. And today I just want to unpack a little bit about the difference between teaching junior high and teaching college, and which is harder. And harder, like more challenging. I think this is a great question that someone had about, like, if I'm going to go into college, I want it to be easier. And I want to just say before I get into five or so, maybe five reasons. How about five? We're going to go with five. Five points to consider when going from junior high into college and which is harder. I just want to say right away, teaching K-12 is harder. And I think there's no way around it. In just my point of view, is that these are other people's children. Now, college is the same way. They are other people's children, but they are all over 18. And there's something slightly different when you have an 11 or 12-year-old. When I was in junior high, not slightly, it's very different. And their parents are involved and they don't have the agency and autonomy to make decisions that an 18-year-old or an adult would make. And so there's something a lot more just weighs on my heart, and the decisions that I make and the implications for those decisions was always weighing on me very heavy, that the parents drop their children off at school or they put them on a bus in the morning and somehow or another they end up on my roster in my classroom for me 45 minutes a day. And sometimes one year I taught 6 classes and I had 180 students every day. And all of those families and all of those kids that were always on my mind and that I carried with me in my heart, and I still do today. And I think that's kind of a key thing, is that I would have sometimes 180 students a year. And now that I'm teaching in higher ed, I typically teach 2 classes a semester because I'm at a research university. And so I might have 20 to 40 students a year. And that is a lot, absolutely. And it's very important to think about. I don't want to undermine that, but it's quite a contrast from the 180 like 12 and 13-year-olds that I used to teach. So that's like a key short answer. But let's get into it. I have like five other things that I want to point out here. Okay. Are you ready? All right, so before I go, if you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. It will help this content get into people's feeds a little bit better. And so I just want to start with, as someone who's taught in both settings, junior high and higher education, I've gathered some insights and key comparisons about this topic of which is harder. Okay, so number one, classroom management. So junior high classrooms are lively and they're energetic and a little bit of chaotic. And students are at all different stages of development where they're testing boundaries and exploring independence. But they are fully formed human beings as well. And they are agentive and autonomous and brilliant. And I think that they have a tremendous amount of assets that we don't always consider. But unfortunately, many of our students come to us in their classroom having been undermined or talked down to sometimes. So they don't always come into our classroom talking to us in a respectful way, because they haven't often been talked to and with respect as well, or treated that way. They're being moved around by bells telling them where to go and when to sit down and what to, and they have lockers that we're able to go in and out of that we can check. You know, just a lot of issues with autonomy and privacy in junior high that lead our students sometimes to test boundaries or to speak up, and they should be speaking up. But sometimes teachers see that as disrespectful. So effective classroom management is key here. It requires structure, clear expectations, and maintaining focus. But for me, my lesson planning, the way that I organized my class, was my classroom management. And I gave a ton of choices and autonomy to students, and we did a lot of collaborative planning. But again, with 180 students, it's a lot more collaboration going, and you need systems in place and protocols in order to do that, to keep everyone safe and everyone engaged. So in the higher education classroom, there's a key, you know, the students come in, they just pretty much know what to do. But again, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be setting your expectations and routines and involving students in the decision making as well. Classroom management is a little bit different, I think, in high school and college rather. The phones are kind of a thing. Laptops being open. This is also in junior high as well. But even though that they are adults, it doesn't mean you don't have to, again, make clear your expectations or come to some norms in your class. And I ask that laptops are closed or phones are flipped over when we're having discussions. And then when we need them for inquiry or for collaboration, then we open them up. Those are some of the key things with classroom management. But typically, it's a lot more to manage when you have 180 students versus 40 or 50. And again, if you're teaching in higher education, or maybe not again, I don't think I said this, you could be a full-time faculty or instructor, and you could teach 4 classes every semester. You could teach 6 classes every semester, and it's not going to be that different than junior high. So it totally depends on your position in higher ed. Number 2, curriculum flexibility. This again depends on your institution, whether it's junior high or higher education or at a university. The flexibility that you have with your curriculum varies. So is it harder? Well, junior high, again, I had a lot of flexibility with my curriculum. We had independent reading and independent writing, and we had various units of study that I was able to develop with colleagues in my department. I had a trusting, wonderful leadership that trusted me to do what I thought was best for the students, and we collaborated to choose texts and assignments and things like that with the students. So there was a lot of flexibility there, but I do know in a lot of schools that there's a scripted curriculum or a textbook that you're supposed to use. And when you're in a school or a district with so many teachers in your grade level or in your department, and a lot to manage, chances are in a school, in a junior high school, you're going to have less flexibility than you might in higher education. So in contrast, university professors have a lot more autonomy in designing their courses and selecting teaching methods and choosing their textbooks. I do have to choose my textbook almost a year, or texts that I'm using in the classroom, 6 months to a year in advance, so they can order them for the school bookstore. But I do get to choose what those are, and more I'm starting to choose ones that are open education resource so that they're free for the students. So with that autonomy comes some ethical decisions that you have to make as a university professor. The books that you're choosing you'll be requiring students to buy them. And so you should know how much they cost and how much of the book are you going to use, and is the book available open access? Is the book available online through your university? So the decisions that you make with your curriculum and your textbooks are also really important. There's a lot kind of weighing on you because it's on you. You made those decisions, so you have to own them when it comes to student evaluations or the program. And the second thing, like for me, I'm in a accredited teacher education program. So what we teach has to align with the standards for accreditation and for my national organization. So I need to know those things, and that my curriculum is informed by all of that. So while there's curriculum flexibility, it doesn't mean you could just do whatever you want. There's still some sort of guidelines and parameters for doing it well. Okay, number three, student engagement. So in junior high, um, students have a lot of range of interests. And if I speak to English language arts in particular, sometimes the reading and writing teacher represents all the things that students hate, which is reading and writing and grammar. And especially if they've had terrible experiences in earlier years, they step into your classroom and you represent all of those things, the red pens and being told to read, being forced to write about things that they don't know about, being judged, all those different things. So when students come in, they come with certain expectations. You'll have students who love reading and love writing or love math, and they come to you, and again, you embody all the things that they love. And student engagement is dependent on their affective feeling, how they feel about this content that you're teaching. And it's your job to motivate them. It's your job to find connections, to build relationships, to help students build on what they know and stretch into new ways of learning. So keeping them engaged requires dynamic teaching strategies, hands-on activities, interactive lessons, protocols for engagement, collaboration, getting feedback, all of that. In contrast, or similarly, university students typically have a higher level of intrinsic motivation. They're typically choosing your class or choosing your major. They're more self-directed in their learning. They're engaging deeply with course material and pursuing their academic interests. And you represent in a lot of ways what they want and what they need, and so that they're engaging with you. And again, you'll have protocols set up to offer them opportunities for conversation around topics that they care about, ways to stretch into new things. I mean, this doesn't mean that your course might not be, maybe it may be required and they didn't choose it, but still there's a lot at stake for them to pass and to learn the content in order to graduate with their degree, and they're paying for it, right? The students in higher ed are paying for it, so they're engaged and they're going to demand that they learn. And in junior high, the students are being forced to go there. They're not choosing to come there. Not their parents are paying taxes, but the students aren't even thinking about that really. I always wanted to talk to my students about saying, hello, like, you know, your parents are paying taxes. You should demand this education. You know, ask for what you need. Get involved in what you want to know. Let's try to shape the curriculum together. But that's just another thing. Okay, number 4, academic rigor. I don't really like this word rigor, but I think that this is something people think about teaching junior high or teaching higher ed. People say, I want to teach higher ed so we can have these philosophical conversations, or I want to teach junior high so that we can have lots more active learning. You can do both in both settings for sure. I think nothing is going to limit the rigor that you can do in junior high or in higher education other than the expectations of your students, or scaffolding the learning in a way that brings everyone together, thinking about it from an asset perspective. So indeed, you know, I think the higher level stuff engages with complex theories and research and critical analysis. Your job as a teacher is to teach them how to engage with theory and research and critical analysis. You're teaching a different kind of reading activity or reading structure, reading skills, writing skills, similarly to junior high as you would, you just are teaching it in a specific genre. So professors are expected to challenge the students intellectually to foster deep conversations. You know, you're supposed to do that in junior high too. Whether you believe it or not, the junior high students want it. They're ready for it. They want to talk about life. They want to talk about philosophy. Let's get over, you know, right or wrong answers and A's and B's and points and things like that, and talk about what matters to the students, and not the grades. I mean, you know what? It's another topic to talk about grades. If you want to know, I can make a whole video about grades. But I think students in junior high are wanting to enter the conversation if they haven't had a chance to do that yet. So introducing theories, introducing research, you can still do that in junior high. But certainly you're stepping right into it, into high school, into college, and the college students have had a little bit more experience doing that. Still, it's important to figure out how much experience so you know how much to scaffold for them. Okay, the last one, number 5. Your impact and the relationships that you have with students. So You know, teaching junior high allows educators to make a profound impact on students' personal and academic growth during a really formative period of their life. Your students will remember you forever, or forget you if it's not memorable. But they'll remember you, and you know, they'll send emails to you, or they'll like you on your Facebook page or Instagram or whatever. Um, Building the strong relationships with students at the junior high level is really rewarding, and it's a lot of the reason why people became teachers in the first place. Uh, in some ways, we're mentors. I wouldn't say friends. I never wanted to be that role. Maybe like an auntie sometimes. Definitely not a parent, because that's not my role either. But I think that there's a lot to be said for the different dynamics that you have with various students in junior high. You might even be their coach at the same time as well. So you're allowed to have a range of relationships with students as their teacher, as their lunchroom supervisor, as their morning supervisor, as their coach, as their um, librarian, any of those things. In contrast, university professors have mentor students along their career path and professionally. We're fostering professional relationships that can extend way beyond graduation. Just a side note, like a couple of my students met in young adult literature class a year ago. They fell in love and they had a wedding after graduation. I was invited to the wedding, right? And now I'm friends with them on Facebook, and I know they're getting jobs as teachers, and I'm going to be following them for years to come. And I often have teachers who graduated who email me for materials or for updates or when they're ready for a student teacher. So it's really this career-long relationship that we're building in higher education. I would say, you know, in junior high, my very first class that I taught in early 2000s, those students are now adults with families, and some of them message me from time to time and will just share elements of their life, and they have memorable experiences from books that we read or things that we wrote way back then. So your impact and your relationships are not all that different between junior high and higher education. It's what you invest, the connections that you make with students, what they see in you, what you see in them, all of that really shapes the impact and relationships that you have for students, and how long that goes out into the world. All of that is possible. So, you know, both teaching junior high and teaching at the university present unique challenges and affordances. I think I've explored some of them here, but I wonder, what do you think? Like, if you are in both worlds or have been in both worlds, what do you think is harder? Which do you think is more challenging? Or the difficulties involved from different generations of students? You know, you might have this experience from, you know, decades ago teaching junior high versus teaching junior high after COVID. And I would say for me, both, I taught junior high right before COVID started, so I didn't have the experience teaching kids during COVID, and I just started teaching higher ed after COVID or during COVID. So I don't really know what higher ed teaching is like before COVID, and the stresses that I might be feeling in my classroom might very well be due to COVID, you know, building relationships and using technology, and being an online professor versus an in-person professor. And those are other things to consider as well. So, you know, teaching for life, there's a lot to think about here. Thank you so much for watching today. If you found this interesting, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more conversations about education and your career as a teacher, your lifespan. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. You can comment below, questions, other things that you'd like me to talk about. And so, you know, stay tuned for more content, and I will see you next time. And just remember,